Hello, I'm John Park, and we are here for discussions with the Dean on Christianity and Law. The question or the issue and the subject matter for today was from John chapter 8, discussing the woman caught in adultery. And the Pharisees and the scribes come to Jesus in the crowd and basically confront Jesus with this question. The Mosaic law says that someone who's caught in adultery basically needs to be stoned. What do you say about this question is the context of our subject matter. And then Jesus basically responds in an interesting way by starting to not say a word in any kind of response, but basically starting to draw some words in the sand. And one of the things you mentioned in the lecture is that this response is rather interesting. He could have done 10 other things. And as lawyers, our response obviously can be argumentative in the way of maybe procedural issue, substantively attacking a statutory interpretation of the Mosaic law. Maybe there's a venue or a forum problem. Lots of arguments that we can bring up as lawyers. But he responds in this manner. What's the main takeaway, if you can elaborate on Jesus' response?
Well, first off, it's mysterious. I mean, to me, it's one of the things, having reflected on this text, that stands out, is that he has so many different ways he could argue about the law with them. You didn't bring witnesses. It's not clear that this is a woman who's betrothed, and that's the only situation in which you stone someone. We're not at the gate. I'm not a judge. There are many ways he could have replied. I think the great lesson here is his goal is not to get in an exchange of words with them. It's not to prove that he's right in words. It's for their own conscience to be acted on and to work. And what Jesus is showing us here is that sometimes silence is the best way to begin that process of awakening someone's conscience. And Jesus does it with just straight literal silence, but sometimes as lawyers, instead, we may say something like, I understand your question, but I think this is the issue we need to begin with. This is where we need to start. You're silent about what somebody else wants to talk about, and you're speaking to something else. Or you don't even have that introduction, you just begin speaking about something else and let it show itself. But in the two silences, I think that's where the real transformation of these Pharisees happened. At the end, they all withdraw their complaint. And it's after he said to them, if you're without sin, cast the first stone. And then he's silent again. He doesn't draw out the point for them. He lets them draw out the point. And that's where they're transformed in conscience.
That makes me think of a wonderful lyric from a song from a Christian group called Out of the Grave some 20, 30 years ago. And the lyric is that, the main part of the lyric is, he is not silent, we are not listening. And in what ways, as you say, he's communicating in an interesting way by writing and being not responsive. In what way is Jesus communicating through his silence, through his act, and with this, of course, response that he makes, he who is without sin cast the first stone. What is the main thrust of Jesus' silence? What is he trying to communicate that we are not listening well about? Apparently the Pharisees and the crowd, they get something profound out of this experience and walk away. And then not just them, but the woman gets a profound realization of something in this occur. What is the message that we ought not to forget to listen to?
At the end of our reading last week, Jesus was so sad in spirit that he cried out. And a whole theme through John 6 and 7 has been, what's standing in between you and responding to me in the right way? Why can't you Why can't you respond to what I'm saying? Why can't you receive my words the way that they are meant? And this is really tough for all of us. Because what Jesus said last week was, if you really set your heart to do God's will, then you'll be able to hear my words and understand. And so maybe a part of the answer is that God is always trying to say, what I'm saying is audible and understandable if you'll only set your heart on me. And once that's said, what more is to be said? If you keep going after you've made your point, you weaken your point. And I think that's part of what Jesus is doing in his silence here today.
Well, wonderful. Thank you for a great summary and follow-up of today's lecture. If you'd like to know more about Christianity law, not just this subject, there's more material available on the Handong International Law website. So tune in next time for our opportunity to engage in further discussion with the Dean on Christianity and law. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor.
Thank you.